Acolyte episode 7 came out, and it's pretty much what myself and many other people predicted. I made a video like 2 days ago saying that there's no way that this flashback episode we're going to get can actually resolve all the issues in this show or be a fulfilling payoff. And again, I, along with many others, was right. So, what this episode wants to do is make it to be this gray area. The Jedi aren't all good. The witches weren't all bad. The Sith aren't all bad. It doesn't accomplish any of it. Everyone is still stupid. Now we've got the confirmation that these characters' motivations are completely nonsensical. And the show is actually so inept that it thinks it's making the Jedi bad for one reason, which is the witches died, when they're actually making the Jedi bad for not wanting to protect children if they can't make them Jedi. They also altered the scene where May falls, if you compare it to episode 3, to try to get the full value out of this quote-unquote twist. You can't alter the footage if you're trying to do a twist, unless you have an unreliable narrator, which the show is not doing. So what the show is trying to do is go for this sort of thing where you see the whole story from one perspective, and then you see it from another perspective, and your whole view on it shifts. Unfortunately, these writers are so incompetent that they don't manage to do that. So when you have that kind of story where you want to do the thing where you see the whole movie, but then you see it from a different perspective at the end, and it changes the whole perspective of the movie, good examples of this would be something like Fight Club, Shutter Island, The Prestige. And the way that these movies work that do it well is that you see the whole movie, the movie makes sense, the characters have their motivations and goals, but then you have one key piece of information or perspective or something else, and then you can reframe the entire movie from that perspective. And these type of movies or shows have a lot of rewatch value because the next time that you watch it through the lens of knowing both sides the whole time, and it makes it a lot more interesting. So the reason this show fails in this regard, along with many others, is primarily because we've been told the story the entire time, and we've known the entire time that there was something else happening, and you knew with almost certainty that there was going to be some kind of miscommunication that led to all the witches dying, and the Jedi did a cover-up. And that's what we got. So there is no reframing, there is no new perspective that really adds anything. We kind of just get duplicate footage from a different perspective to fill time. And if anything, it might actually make the story worse because it doesn't reframe the story. It doesn't really add much. There's nothing unknown. And this is all on top of the fact that obviously the characters don't have clear motivations. Their motivations that they do have don't make sense. They contradict themselves throughout the episode. So now we can say with 100% certainty instead of 99% that the show was never going to make sense. It's completely incompetent. We have one episode left, and there's a million things that still haven't really been explained, and there's no way they're going to be. And again, certainly not in a satisfactory way or a logical way. And really, the only goal of the show seems to be to smear the Jedi and make them into corrupt police. You know, hashtag BLM, hashtag defund the police, blah, blah, blah. That seems to be the goal of this entire show. So let's just get into it, and I'll talk about the different character stuff along the way. Because this whole thing is just farcical. So right off the bat, this episode's pretty much a filler as far as time, because we don't get much from this perspective other than stupidity. And immediately, we start off with a great example of how to not do exposition. So the Jedi are walking around with like forced metal detectors, which I think is retarded world building. And they had this conversation around the campfire where Tommen is pouting, and he's saying, "When can we go home? We've been here for 7 weeks. We're not doing anything." And they explain to him that they're looking for a virgins. And it's like, how the hell would he not know that after 7 weeks on this planet, what you guys are looking for? You guys just went to this planet for 2 months and kept him in the dark. A perfect example of how to not write exposition. Just terrible. So they explain this Virgins thing. And I'll be honest, I don't even really understand what exactly they're trying to say. Because it sounds like what they're trying to say is that some planets have a stronger connection to the Force, and this can give them life. That Brendak had some big accident 100 years ago, but now there's life everywhere. So fine. I thought some planets being tied more to the Force was always a thing. I don't really know what exactly they're looking for, but this all sounds very academic. And on top of that, it's like they sent 4 Jedi to do a seemingly planet-wide search. So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure about any of the logistics here. And that was also one of my first flubs. So I'm not editing, you'll fucking hear it, so whatever. So he's pouting because he wants to go home to Coruscant. And I'll be honest, and this might surprise you guys, I'm not a Jedi. But it's hard for me to imagine a Jedi being homesick after 7 weeks. Like, I would think traveling around the galaxy for whatever business they have, they'd be gone months, years at a time. Maybe even longer, depending on the species. And him saying he's homesick obviously wouldn't even be a big deal if it wasn't the impetus for literally the entire season happening. And all the witches dying and all the dumb shit that happens. So we fill our first 7 minutes of the episode with them picking up plants and putting them in science fiction looking devices. And then Sol sees May and Osha, and we get the exact same scene that we've already seen, but from his perspective. And this is kind of the epitome of this entire episode, is we see what he sees, but what he sees is what we've already seen. So this episode and episode 3 really could have been one episode, and really they probably should have been the first episode. But they wanted everything to be a surprise and a mystery. Also that you could be disappointed when you get to the payoff. I mean, this is pretty much the equivalent of thinking you're about to get laid, and then you just get a sad hand job. That's what this show is, a sad hand job. So we see Sol, he watches the twins go into this castle, and then he just climbs up the side. So he actually does kind of just break in to see what's going on. But this is all just kind of padding the runtime. Again, it doesn't really add much. And this is a really weird thing where they just have some kind of open window roof, I guess, because Sol just climbs up the side of the castle and is watching their common room area. And he sees the witch mom lady teaching the kids how to use the Force, and he makes a face like they're being abused. So right away, we get pretty questionable interpreting of what's happening because they're just Force training. And yeah, she Force pushes them, but it's not like she slams them against the wall or something. They just get knocked over because they were fighting. I don't know. To me, this seems like the equivalent of if you saw some parent yelling at their kid and then felt like you had the right to take the kid with the excuse that they're being abused. Just really flimsy reasoning and completely insufficient for what the story is trying to do. Again, as expected. And then he sees them doing some witchcraft, and he's like, oh no, they're witches. We have to take the kids. Again, trying to make the Jedi, I guess, seem like religious cop zealots. And so right away, for the 50th time this season, a character says something, makes a decision. Someone else says, I disagree. And the character says, okay, yeah, you're right. And just completely changes their mind. So Sol is telling Trinity that there's a witch cult here. They have girls that are not being treated like girls. He thinks their lives are in danger. Not really sure anything that's based on. From what we saw him see, that seems like a pretty big leap that he's making. And then he goes, oh, there's a witch cult ceremony tonight. because Trinity wants to go ask the council for guidance. And he's like, no, I insist. And she goes, oh, okay. And instead of doing the common sense thing and doing both, since they have 4 people and presumably all day still, go send a message to the council and then go meet the witches in person. They just ignore the council. And this is a big problem for Trinity, character-wise, because at the end of the episode, like throughout the duration of the episode, she's saying, we need to talk to the council, we need to talk to the council. And then at the very end of the episode, she's the one who decides to do a cover-up. Again, just whatever the characters need to be for 5 seconds, they will. If that contradicts the previous 10, who cares? Oh, and they did bring up the Night Sisters. And I hate the Night Sisters, honestly. Like, different people using the Force in different ways, I think is fine. But with the expansion of the witches, and especially in this episode, the Force is pretty much just going to be whatever magic system that a particular writer wants to use. And then they're just going to call it the Force or the Thread or whatever other word. And it's going to have unlimited power to do whatever it wants, which I really don't like, just as an overall world building thing. And it's funny, I just talked about Trinity giving an order and then not following through. And here she goes, I'm just going to go alone so we're not threatening. And the other people were like, no, we need to go with you. There's like 50 of them. And then she goes, oh, okay. Like, I guess leadership is just a fucking democracy in this world. Even though they have a council that they ask questions and a ranking and Padawans and masters, it's all just voting. Or if you just insist, your boss changes their mind. Also, another really dumb line here that they put in that actually makes the show worse is Tommen goes, oh, it's an abandoned elevator shaft. It must have been an old mine. So, confirming that the entire thing would prove it. Jesus, there's another fuck up for you. Confirming that the entire thing would be fireproof, is made of stone. And we see in about 20 minutes here that the witches didn't die from the fire, but the entire place did burn down from the stupid little fire that May started. And also, I'm not sure how big of a difference 4 Jedi is versus 50 as opposed to 1, especially if they're not looking for a fight. And Trinity gets this line, and I've heard it 3 times. I still don't actually know what she's trying to say. Soul says there's 50 of them, and she goes, 50 women and 2 children. And only 2 children. I'm not even sure what she's trying to imply there. Or if that's supposed to be like, why aren't there more kids? But if there's only women, they understand biology. So, really unclear to me what she's trying to get across there. I went and skipped ahead of that great line that I had to hear twice. You can't deny the Jedi have a right to test Padawans, with your permission, of course. And that contradiction was all in the same sentence, so the writers are really stepping their game up to put that line in twice. But what this episode does with brainwashing just makes everything that happened in the later movies with Anakin look like child's play. Like, head witch lady here just goes into Tommen's mind and is like, ask me for what you want and I'll give it to you. Like, why are they depriving you of what you need? And he says, I want to go to Coruscant. And then now she mind controls him. And then later in this episode, we see multiple attempts where they're just going to take over someone's body, including Cal Naka, who's a Jedi Knight, I think, at this point in the story. They just take him over. And not just take him over like how Tommen looks weird and kind of messed up. Take him over like using his body as a puppet. Which, again, just really, I think, dismantles a lot of the Star Wars lore. Because there is like, in the non-canon stuff, there's like Sith sorcery where Darth Xana like really fucks with people's minds and makes them see terrible things. But this kind of like mind domination, at least in the stuff that I've seen that wasn't canon, is usually used on like animals and by the Sith. It's kind of brute force. But anybody who has any kind of resilience mentally is usually immune to this sort of thing. So to me, this undermines all of that. Or you have to ask the question, why wasn't Palpatine just influencing senators and politicians and whoever else way more directly instead of like nudging them through suggestion, which is kind of what's implied with Anakin, his dreams, and Palpatine's slow influence and climb in politics. I don't know. To me, it just really undercuts a lot of the world building in Star Wars. So they leave and have this conversation, and Sol says that he feels a connection to Osha, that she's meant to be his Padawan. All kind of weird to me. Kind of bringing back up the groomer vibes that have popped up throughout the season. And we get a line from Trinity here where she says the Order will never accept the twins. They're too old. So the show, a lot of people thought was going to be part of the reason that they say Anakin's too old in the Phantom Menace. They didn't even put that much effort in. It's just some policy the Jedi have. If they can't get them young enough, they don't want them. And they kind of have a back and forth about where Trinity's essentially saying we need to respect their culture. They're not going to voluntarily let the twins leave. And Sol is saying, yeah, but they're in danger. We should protect them because they're kids. And they're both right in like the most vague sense. But the conversation they have in a couple minutes here pretty much makes Sol completely in the right. And the show makes the Jedi, I think, kind of the bad guys for not wanting to get involved unless they can convert the kids to Jedi. So there's a little thing here where Tommen asks May, since she goes first, if he can take her blood. And we saw that when he came to Osha, he just stabbed her. I don't really know why they included that. I guess to say that he was annoyed by the whole thing because May lies to them. But weird. And we get a really annoying piece of dialogue here where Trinity is saying, in this test, we want you to blah, blah, blah. And before she can finish, the girl goes, what do you want me to do? And then she finishes the sentence that she was going to finish. And I know they're trying to make May like abrasive. Just dumb. So she fails the test. She lies a bunch. But then they ask her what the mark is and kind of what they were doing. So Trinity is asking May about this mark and the Ascension. And she says, I don't really know, but we'll get to be the leaders of the Coven. And she says, well, how can the kids be leaders? And she goes, I'm not sure. Mom says that we must walk through fear and everyone must be sacrificed. Everyone must be sacrificed to fulfill their destiny. There you go. I put the captions up so you can see the exact line. So at this point to me, them not getting involved just because they can't convert them really does, I think, lay into the groomer thing. I mean, at least if they're police, at a minimum, they should be like, hey, what the hell are you guys doing? She said that she was going to be sacrificed. Can we observe the ceremony? Or like, we're just going to take her away and protect the kids because they're kids and we're Jedi, even if they can't become Padawans themselves. So again, just the incompetence on full-on display. Because it doesn't seem to me like the writers even think that this is what made the Jedi bad. But they don't realize that having the Jedi abandon kids that they can't convert makes them bad. So they contact the council, wait for their answer. Council says, if we can't convert them to our ideology, then fuck them, as all good Jedi would do. Sol has a bit of a tantrum, and then Torvin says the blood samples are in. Their M count, which I'm fucking midichlorians, is very high, and their symbionts are the same. Don't know what symbionts are, but pretty much they say that they're identical, and that couldn't be possible unless they were created artificially through the Force. Like one consciousness into two bodies. I'm sure that will not get explained any more than that. So I guess it's safe to say that somehow they were Force created identically. It's not exactly clear to me how they could split a soul into two bodies. I guess this is just part of the witchcraft. Either way, Tommen's like, all right, this like they say that this could only be done because of the virgins, because they need that much force power. And Tommen says, okay, time to go home. And then speeds off and they all chase after him. We get a lot of footage that we saw in episode 3. Again, just padding out the runtime. We see that the mad, horny mommy tells May that if she doesn't want Osha to leave, that she needs to stop her. So she like pressures her and makes her angry and says to use her anger to go do it. So they're all throwing a tantrum that she's going to let Osha go. And they're like, you'd sacrifice our future because that's what she wants. She doesn't even know what she wants or the power she has. And the second mom lady is like, well, that's what she wants. And they're all throwing a tantrum. And they're like, you're also our leader and not just their mom. And she's like, well, I'm choosing mother. And I guess it's supposed to be some powerful scene. But I don't really give a fuck about her or the girls. So it's just kind of cringe. And also, we have no idea what the dynamics are of any of this. We have no idea why the twins were created specifically or how that would preserve their future. None of that is explained. I guess we can all just fill in whatever fan fiction you want or headcanon because the writers aren't going to fucking show anything or explain anything or give us an explanation as to why the twins are so valuable. Other than it seems like Anastasia might use their bodies as a vessel and then transfer her soul or something based on what we see in a few minutes here. But even that, I'm doing a lot of legwork for the writers here. And we get a really weird scene here that's also really poorly acted, where May throws a tantrum and breaks the door and says no one can get in or out. And then the horny mom comes in and is like, mount up, we're going to fight the Jedi. Everyone go to the common room. But the acting and the dialogue is holy shit. Let me see if I can show it without getting hit with copyright.
No one can get in or out!
Witches, arm yourselves!
Hard for me to believe that was the best take on that one. So Soul can hear the forced conversation where the girls are stuck there. He says, come on, Torben. Come with me and don't let them get in your mind this time. We see May's about to start the fire. Trinity says she can't land close enough, so the Wookiee's just going to jump out of the back. And we'll get to see a Wookiee with a lightsaber, which I'm sure all the shills will say makes this the best Star Wars ever. And this is also when May is starting the fire, and it tries to make it look accidental, which I'm not really sure how that makes it any better. She still locked her sister in a room and was trying to set her book on fire or whatever. Doesn't change the fact that the stone fucking mountain also just burns down. And this is like the big moment here where Tommen and Soul confront the two moms. And we just keep getting cringe dialogue. She says, after Soul says that they came there with noble intentions, she says someday those noble intentions will destroy every Jedi in the galaxy. And the writers were sitting there jacking off when they wrote that one, like, yeah, aren't we so fucking clever setting up the demise of the Jedi in the prequels? It's a line that makes no fucking sense. Their noble intentions weren't what got them killed. It was their fucking complacency and involvement in politics. And arrogance, if anything. But Soul asks how their twins were created, and they both get really uncomfortable. So May comes running up and says, Mom, help me, because the place is burning down. The stone building. Mountain. And this is like, oh, it's so fucking cheesy. Because this is supposed to be like the big moment for the whole season. It's all slow motion with the choir music. And it's just so stupid that it undermines anything that could be cool about it. Let me see if I can play it again without getting hit. And it looks like here, you can see in the clip, that May is getting like absorbed into Anastasia or something. And Soul is like, fuck it, and then kills her. I guess because he thinks it's Osha, even though it's May. I'm not sure what difference that would make. Again, the show is so all over the place that it's unclear to me if they even understand like their own intentions or what they're doing. Because if he would, like, if Soul would save her when it's Osha but not May, that makes him a piece of shit and a weirdo, really. So Soul runs her through with the lightsaber, as he should. And she's like, I was going to let Osha go. And we know that that's May, so I don't even know what the fuck that means. I don't know why she just suddenly had to turn into a ghost or a Dementor and couldn't be like, everyone just calm down. Soul, if Osha wants to go with you, I'm going to let her. And then go from there. Like, this is what I'm saying is this entire season hinged on this miscommunication. And also, this is what motivates May's 16 years of revenge. She saw her mom fucking ghosting out. This is what motivates Tommen to kill himself, which doesn't even make any fucking sense. Like, none of the story makes sense after you've seen this episode. And presumably this is why the story is not told in order. And I don't want to harp on this too much because they're kids, but these little girl actresses are just not very good. And a lot of the story, 2 full episodes, relies on their acting, which makes it hard to watch. And then on top of the kids, here's another hilarious line delivery from the horny mom.
Me. Run!
I have no idea whose decision that was or who watched this and was like, yeah, let's go with that one. Ooh, man. And just a little bit more on Tommen's motivation to kill himself. I'm pretty sure in this scene, he doesn't actually kill anybody. He just blocks blaster fire. So, like, that's the sin that he has to live with? Give me a fucking break. He stopped talking and killed himself for that? Piss off. And then also, this next little piece of choreography is something they keep doing in Star Wars, and I fucking hate it, where someone is attacking with a sword or lightsaber or whatever. In this case, it's like a big staff thing. And the other person is just stepping half a step back over and over to dodge. And like they think it looks cool. But all that really means is that none of their swings would have hit to begin with. Like the dodge thing works more if you sidestep and you see the blade go like past them. But with this, it's just stupid. And I'll try to show that too real quick. So this lady's going after Soul, and he's refusing to fight back. And eventually he kind of disarms her, or she steps back. And this poor lady, I don't know if it's her as an actor, or if they were like, we want to give you the highest like cringe to line ratio. But she has another one right here that I'm like, man, this is rough.
Fight me!
Squid Game says to Tommen, go get the twins. They're locked inside and there's a bunch of explosions going off. So he's supposed to leave, but then Kalnaka's supposed to come in. And horny mom is like, you shouldn't have brought him. And Squid Game's like, protect your mind. And she goes, not him. And then we see Kalnaka come down possessed. So fucking cheesy. Makes no sense that these witches can just dominate Jedi minds at will. But we get a Wookiee with a lightsaber, so I'm sure all the seals will clap. And this is the transformation of her possessing Kalnaka's mind. And it looks like teleportation in Harry Potter. And again, this is the type of thing that when you introduce it, it's like, what does this do to the world building? So these are all the dead women that you see at the end of episode 3. And people were like, oh, they died from the smoke, or there's no lightsaber wounds. And you find out that they died because of this dumbass magic, which makes no fucking sense. How could this magic ever be learned or used more than once if this is how it works? But I guess they think it looks cool to have a bunch of weirdos chanting. And this saber fight is okay. I mean, on the surface level, yeah, it's cool to see a Wookiee with a lightsaber. But they do some dumb stuff in here that makes no sense. Like where Soul and Tommen are fighting hand to hand with the Wookiee. And obviously Wookiees are supposed to be super strong, and we see him fling them around a bunch, and we've been told that they can rip a person's arms off. So it's like, how could a person ever go hand to hand with a Wookiee? Just dumb. And this is the Force, again, just not being understood by anyone. Kalnaka just Force pushes both. And they never show anyone resisting Force shit. At least in new Star Wars. Like, that shouldn't work when he tries it. Or he should just do it and then strangle them both. Or they should all just be using the Force and fuck the lightsabers. And then I guess Indara found somewhere to land the ship and climb the mountain because she comes in and saves the day. I'm going to go ahead and guess that this was deliberate to have Trinity save the day because she's a woman, because that's just how shit is now. The same way that we had to watch Soul get elbowed in the face over and over by the horny mommy. And also, I'm fucking tired of this move being in everything where a woman jumps on a guy's head and like twirls and then he goes to the ground. But it makes even less sense here with a fucking Wookiee. I mean, Trinity is probably 120 pounds. Maybe. And she just brings the Wookiee down, no problem. So we get no explanation here for what happens. Trinity holds Kalnaka down and Force pushes them out of their mind or something, or disconnects all of them from his mind. It's not even clear to me. But either way, as soon as the Force connection is severed, they all just fucking stroke over and die. Like, why use that magic? And how the fuck did you find out about it? And how would you ever use it more than once? Just, I don't even know what to say about it. It's so absurd that the Force is now just whatever the fuck we feel like. It makes it really hard to take pretty much any of the fighting seriously when it comes to the Force now. So this is the edited shot that I mentioned earlier. We can see when they're both on the bridge here. The Soul is right there, and he's actually holding up the bridge with the Force instead of just holding up the fucking 50-pound girls. Because, you know, every Jedi is retarded in this world. At least that's what they want them to be, is evil, retarded cops. Corrupt also. So I'm going to show you the episode 3 one just so you can see what I'm saying real quick. This is episode 7 right here. So this is episode 3. I'll just play it real quick. It's a little bit hard to tell because of how fast it goes, but you can see the difference in the shots. So then I'll play this one for you so you can see that he's just clearly there and he was holding both, and then he picks Osha. Again, instead of just using the Force on 2 people, but whatever. So yeah, I think it's lame as shit to change the shots unless you have an unreliable narrator. Obviously, when you watch Fight Club, you get to re-see all the scenes just from the perspective of Ed Norton, but without his imagination being there. So we go to the ship. They're all sad. Soul's like, I want to tell the council the truth. Trinity's like, we will tell them the truth, that May set a fire and we lost everyone. So she's using a technicality to get off from responsibility. And how there would be no oversight by the Jedi is just astonishing to me. Like, oh, hey, we just had 4 Jedi kill 50 women and a kid and then bring one back. No investigation. Fuck it. Let them just go live their lives. But essentially she says that they just took everything from Osha, so he shouldn't essentially abandon her also. Because being a Jedi was her dream. How they even knew about the Jedi on that planet with literally no one, I have no idea, but whatever. Also, the council that just rejected the twins before, I guess, will take them now. I don't really know what to make of any of that. Because they don't say it, but they have called Osha a Jedi for the whole show. So, whatever, I guess. So, Soul lies to Osha, and that's the end of the show. Well, I wish it was. We still have one more episode. But yeah, it seems pretty clear to me that the intent of this show was to turn the Jedi into corrupt cops, maybe groomers, maybe child abductors, while also trying to rationalize that Chimera is somehow justified because the Jedi take children into battle as part of their training or into hostile environments. I don't even know what to say about the fucking morality of this show or the people that created it. Obviously, they don't give a shit about Star Wars. I don't think anybody who actually likes Star Wars would ever try to write a show purely to smear the Jedi, which is what this show seems to be doing. And there's plenty of interesting ways that you can have a Jedi be an asshole or a fallen Jedi, or whatever the case is. I thought one of the better parts of the Clone Wars was the Jedi that was just throwing the clones into battle because he was like, they're clones. They're not actual people. Like, at least there's an interesting moral philosophy and discussion. This is just, they don't like the Jedi. They don't like the idea of purely a good and bad side. So they want things to be messy. And they're incompetent, so it's bad storytelling also. I'm going to leave it there. We've got one more episode of this dog shit. And they have like a million things that aren't explained. Obviously, I can't imagine we're going to get any satisfying conclusion because nothing up to this point has been interesting. So the show is just going to kind of end. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it had an ambiguous ending because they doubt they're going to get a season 2. And they want the fans to do a bunch of fan fiction writing for them to pretend like this show's not probably the worst piece of Star Wars media, at least in the live action realm that we've seen. I'm going to leave it there for this one. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. This story is absolute fucking dog shit, and the people making Star Wars have a disdain for Star Wars and the fans that built it. Fuck them. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.